What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is September 29th of 2021. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are. And in today's video, I want to dive into the topic of Solana versus Ethereum. Now, I'm not here to butt heads and get people fighting, nor am I really here to discuss so much entirely the fundamentals, but take a mixture of technical analysis and fundamental analysis and understand whether or not at this part of the cycle, if it's good to be exposed right now towards Ethereum or Solana in this case. Which one should be more of a predominant position in this case that we should focus on? So let's go ahead and dive straight into it, guys. Let's not wait any longer. I want to take a look here at something that I think is very important for everyone to watch here, and that is the ratios of one cryptocurrency to another. Instead of just looking at the Bitcoin pair for Solana or the dollar pair for Solana, or vice versa, looking at it for Ethereum, whether it be in Bitcoin terms or dollar terms, that's not really what we solely want to focus on when we're making these comparisons. What we want to look at here is something we can all create in this case on TradingView, which is a ratio of Solana to Bitcoin, right? So we've got that here. And then also we've got one here for ETH to BTC. So you can see the formula that I've put here, I'm pulling from Binance's price feed, and it gives us this nice beautiful ratio. We're taking a look at the 3-day chart here. So each of these candles represents 3 days worth of price action. And what you'll notice here is we can start to get a really good picture of how Solana is performing against Ethereum. And usually I'll put the underdog in this case, kind of the smaller cap play in front of the pair in this case against the larger asset, which is in this case Ethereum, right? So that's how we get our ratio here. Now, what's really important to focus on when looking at these ratios is to see if we can find any kind of general trends on the longer-term timeframes. Obviously, as we can see here since the start of the market, Solana being a smaller cap play and also getting a lot of traction alongside other competing layer 1 protocols, it has obviously made leaps and bounds against Ethereum. And look, we can badger ourselves whether or not you did invest in it. You can cheer yourself on in this case. And if you missed it, you don't want to badger yourself in this case. You don't want to give yourself too much of a hard time. You especially don't want to do a mistake that so many people find themselves in, which is getting themselves caught 2 steps behind, right? Missing out at the beginning, buying it at the top, getting dragged down the rest of the market. That's not what we want to do. So we're not going to FOMO in here to Solana. And I got to be honest with you guys, with all these layer 1s pop up in this case, I look at them more than anything as trading opportunities. Until they get to the point where they've got mass smart contract deployment, until they have this point where they reach anywhere near the network size and effect of Ethereum, I'm not going to take any of these too seriously as a long-term investment. So I'm going to weigh heavier in this case, more on a technical basis, on price action. And even though price action has been good, what's really important to notice is that since back here in the beginning of September, we've had not only a nice pullback here in the ratio, but price action has really started to stagnate at the moment. So what we're going to want to see here in this case is we want to get back in that pattern of revisiting the previous all-time highs and then starting to charter higher. Once we clear through those higher levels, that's where I might be, again, optimistic to set in a position in Solana. But we've already had such a massive move here against Ethereum since back here in January, right? Right now, we're up nearly 2,900%. There's not too much more room to go, in my opinion, that we could see for Solana here in the short term. Maybe after a correction in the market, perhaps. And the reason I hold this kind of sentiment and why I would more encourage the idea of not FOMOing into rotating your positions now is because of what happened with Binance Smart Chain as of recent, right? BNB in this case to ETH, right? Not against Binance Smart Chain, right? I'm not a negative person when it comes to the protocol itself, but to be completely fair with you guys, similar to a lot of these layer 1s, they saw some artificial growth in this case that wasn't real. It wasn't people utilizing DeFi applications. The numbers were a bit overinflated. And we can see here since back here in April, in this case, when it peaked out, you're coming back down here again in regards to the performance of BNB against ETH. Now, not to a dramatic degree, even if we take it off the logarithmic chart, I mean, geez, if you still got it here in February, you're break even, right? And maybe if you got that in here, if you're lucky, if you're one of the earlier investors, then yeah, you're still up in the green against Ethereum. Not bad. But if you look at anyone who's bought in since April, they're down on their money against Ethereum, all right? So again, a big point here I want to emphasize is not FOMOing in, not just chasing the trend here in this case, guys, and understanding when it's time to realize that, hey, look, I missed the early portion of this. Let me go ahead and focus on the next opportunity, right? right? That's a good way to go about doing it. Instead of looking at all these different layer one protocols and immediately FOMOing into them, when in this case, their dominance levels have skyrocketed in the crypto market. They've made major moves here, whether you're looking at it in Bitcoin or dollar terms, or taking a look at the percentage holding of dominance in the market, right? All these plays here, right, have taken up a large chunk or large pie of the space, right? And it's typical to see that after you see these kind of rallies, that there's going to be some kind of cool down, right? Now, is it a rotation to Ethereum? Possibly. But I think that there's another also opportunity that we can focus on, right? There's obviously the play here for Ethereum. And I would say that in the short term, I have a more favorable opinion here, not just because of my investments in this case. I could go rotate and invest in these if I wanted to, guys, right? So I'm not here shilling my bags or anything like that. I don't have the time to do that. What I do want to focus on, though, is what's going to be best for me over the next couple of months when it comes to my investment thesis. And generally speaking, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I think that Ethereum is probably the better bet. But there's another thing we can focus on, and that's alternative layer one protocols, right? We've seen this formula play out multiple times already, and I think we've still got some other plays that we talked about in a video back a couple days ago on the channel, where there are many other layer one protocols like Cosmos, right, out there that are in the single-digit billion-dollar range that could still repeat something similar to what we saw with Avalanche or Solana or these other plays out there that have some degree of traction. But one play that I think is really interesting, and when we talk about the fundamental aspect of these plays in the long run, is having something that not only can offer the same degree of benefits that networks like Solana can do, but also can do things that Solana and other layer ones can't. What are we learning from these layer one protocols, these competing platforms or potentially complementary platforms to Ethereum as a core layer one network in the DeFi space and NFTs, etc.? Well, there's one play I want to talk about, which is actually one of our sponsors for today. Now, you guys know we've talked about them a lot on the channel, and that's Energy, right? Now, I want to talk a little bit about why I personally believe Energy is one of the plays you should keep on your radar. I'm not saying it's the absolute ultimate play you should watch, but I will say in this case that Energy overall is not only a project I've been a big fan of for a long time, and I think it's been a sleeping giant within the crypto space, building throughout the bear market. But outside of this, well, it actually has the fundamental framework to be able to not just per se compete with Ethereum, but possibly complement Ethereum as a blockchain network. So what do I mean by this? Before we start diving into why Energy's approach may be a more viable solution as an emerging layer one protocol, we need to understand the differences between Energy's approach versus the vast majority of competing layer ones. And that's the key term there, complementing versus competing. Whereas Energy's approach in this case allows for people not only to bridge from Ethereum, but also port over existing applications from the Ethereum network, other layer ones are aiming to do something entirely different. And whether people like to admit it or not, it might sound like a harsh term, it's what they're aiming to achieve. They're aiming to be Ethereum killers or Ethereum replacers. It doesn't really matter what you want to call it. In fact, competition is a great thing. I'm not badgering the idea of killing Ethereum. If it happens, so be it. But the critical thing here is that there's a different level of approaches here for these two different types of networks. And you can change the consensus means in this case. You can change the data structuring. For example, Avalanche uses a DAG structure versus Ethereum, which is a blockchain, right? There's all these different differentiating factors. But the big key difference that Energy has that these networks don't have, all these new exciting layer ones, is Ethereum compatibility. The ability to take not only the existing assets from the Ethereum blockchain that live here on the Ethereum blockchain today, but also all the great applications and community development that's already happened on Ethereum and towards a much more scalable environment that's secure, that's favorable for the end user, that has low network fees. That is the big differentiating factor for Energy. And we've seen the success of this so far, not only with the Energy Bridge, but we've also been seeing it with the key application that Energy has been focusing on. Really one of the first major moves into DeFi for Energy, which is the Energy Swap platform, right? In this case, it's already got about $10.5 million of liquidity locked in it and is doing over anywhere from $1 to nearly $3 million in volume on a weekly basis. This is really good for an emerging layer one protocol like Energy. And I think that this is something that's very telling in regards to one of the big benefits of being EVM compatible, which is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you can build a better network in this case, and that's exactly what Solana and Avalanche and all these networks are trying to claim, that they change the consensus means, they change the way they store or track data on the network, right? All these major changes, if you can do that in a really solid fashion, but at the same time provide that EVM compatibility and maybe the flexibility for further developing upon Solidity or other languages, I think that's a great approach. And that's generally what Energy does in this case. They take what works already in the crypto space and they're adding in a lot of new exciting means of consensus. Now, one thing as well that's really important to focus on is when we're talking about security or decentralization, the desirable traits of a layer 1 protocol outside of Ethereum. We want to see in this case that we're going to be maintaining some degree of decentralization and also do it in a secure way. Now, there's a lot of different layer 1s and they have all their own unique approaches. Some of them copy existing approaches. One thing that Energy does that's really interesting, and it's a major differentiator, is how they actually go about, in this case, storing data and how they're working towards storing this data long term in order to provide high throughput scalability. This is a solution they've been working on for a long period of time, and it generally is focused on around having two different types of nodes on the network. The first one in this case is the master nodes, right? These are the ones that are helping to confirm transactions on the network that have a high stake in the currency in this case. But then you also have archaic or archaeal nodes in this case that are going to be basically helping to store the more long-term data, whereas the master nodes are providing high levels of throughput and fast accessibility to being able to process transactions in a cheap way. So this fragmentation in this case of the information or data on a blockchain allows in this case to not only have the long trail of information, in this case through snapshots of balances and activities, but outside of that as well, provide the ability for users to engage in high throughput activity in this case on the network for cheap levels of fees. But in summary, I want you guys to realize that Energy is one of many other plays that might be a diamond in the rough. They might be one of those upcoming plays. And the broader lesson I want to talk about is to keep an open mind in this case, to not just chase the next best option outside of Ethereum, but rather to step back, not FOMO into plays that have already had their heyday in this case and made great returns. And in fact, focus on plays that still have that chance to make major multiples against Ethereum or really create a whole new wave of value creation for its user base and a potential growing community. And as I look across the platform filter on CoinMarketCap, it doesn't even include all the real platform plays. There's a ton of different plays out there that are still below $1 billion market cap and have that opportunity to still continue growing and flourishing. And I think that's where we're going to really find the value here. Plays that have yet to really surface yet and are offering really exciting new ways to not just reinvent how consensus or data structuring is done on decentralized networks, but maintaining that while also maintaining the traditional framework on Ethereum and rather serving as a competitor, serving as a complement. I think that's going to be a really important trend we need to focus on over the next coming months to the next year. But that being said, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are. If you like this video, drop a like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everyone.